Hi everyone, welcome to Technical Writing, the summer session. So I'm Seema Dahlheimer. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the class today, kind of giving you an overview, and we're going to talk a bit about technical writing, what it is, why you have to learn this, all this kind of stuff. Also, I'll give you a bit of an overview of your first assignment, which is to post a video introducing yourself, which sounds fairly self-explanatory, and it is kind of self-explanatory. So I'll do my introduction of myself a little bit later with all the detail. Let's talk a bit about navigating this class and what it's all about. So I'm going to be using Canvas with you guys fairly regularly. I'm trying to use it as a tool for most of what we do. And then also, you may have gotten my email a little while ago about this, Google Hangouts. When we meet in person, kind of video in person, but live meet, we'll be doing that through Google Hangouts. I haven't found a great way to do that through Canvas, and Google Hangouts works really, really well. So I'll put everyone on a Google Hangout so that we can all be in touch with each other. We can use the chat feature of that as well, especially for easy little questions, for the sorts of things that you need an immediate response for. You may have a question for your classmates. Hey, I'm struggling with this sentence. Anybody have any ideas about how to make it more concise? Or I feel like something's wrong with the way I'm describing this. If any of you aren't in my field, do they make sense to you? That kind of thing could be really good for the Google Hangout kind of chat because it's more live, real time. You get notifications through Google about that. So if you use your Gmail address, you'll be getting fairly regular notifications about that. So I think Google Hangouts would be really good for that. We will have more formal discussions on the Canvas discussion boards as well, and I expect you to participate fairly regularly in them. I'm not going to be counting number of posts or anything like that. I just kind of want to see you participating regularly. One of the cool things about online chat, and something that I think about it, is that it's very informal, and it can be very informal. So I am not looking at your grammar or punctuation or anything like that when you're chatting, when you're doing the discussion boards, when you're having that conversation with your classmates. Just as if we were in class, I wouldn't be looking at any of that stuff either. So please don't hesitate to take an idea and throw it out there, and don't worry about like, oh, what if I spelled this wrong? What if I expressed it in a way that didn't make sense? I don't want to post it. That kind of thing you don't have to worry about. Really just think about it as a conversation with your classmates. This will be easier to envision once you actually have sort of met them when we do our first live group chat on Google Hangouts video. And that's on Fridays. So you do want to make sure to be available Fridays, either 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock Central Time. I was hoping to hit the lunch breaks of people who are working in St. Louis or in the Midwest, or maybe if you're on the East Coast, the 11 o'clock might hit your lunch break. Because it's such a small class, if we are able to determine that there's one time that works for all of you, it would be awesome if we just had class and it was that one time, like say 11:30 or something like that. But I know many of you are struggling with work schedules and bosses that have pretty rigid requirements of you. So if we have to have 2 sessions, that's fine. We'll split it up, 3 or 4 people, and it'll still be a great way to connect with each other and ask questions in a more informal setting. So I think that that's going to be really great, and that's Fridays. So you do want to make sure you're available Fridays and have a reliable high-speed internet connection on Fridays during that lunch break time. So that's kind of when we all need to meet, when you need to make yourself available. Everything else is, I'm going to say, fairly asynchronous. Most of this is asynchronous. A lot of the content that I'm delivering to you or giving to you is like this. I'm taking a video of myself talking to you, or I will send you handouts and that kind of thing. I plan to use the announcement feature of Canvas fairly often. Even if I post a video in another place, if you're supposed to watch it, I will go ahead and post that, a link to that on the announcements as well, just so that you have it a couple of different places. I really want to make sure that there isn't anything that you miss. Canvas is easier to navigate than its predecessor, Blackboard. I really think Blackboard was horrible, but Canvas still has its quirks. And so if you have questions about it or you're having trouble navigating it or finding things, please feel free to ask me. I am really accessible. I check my email regularly. It's on my phone, it notifies me, so I really check it regularly. I also will be checking that Google Hangout, so if you have questions, you can pop them out there in the chat. What's very cool about that is if everybody else has the same question, then they also get it answered, and that's often the case. So I would encourage you to use those different forums. So that's a little bit about how we're going to navigate this class. I said mostly asynchronous. I am going to want to do some one-on-one meetings with each of you, and there will be times where maybe there's a pair of you who are reviewing each other's work. Sorry, I'm just tables wiggling a little bit. A pair of you who are reviewing each other's work, and I want to essentially sit in on that and give my 2 cents as well. So I'll schedule appointments with you where I meet with you for half an hour or 15 minutes or something like that. We can do it on Google Hangouts. I have a Skype account. I find that it's maybe not quite as good as Google Hangouts. And then when you meet with each other, you can do it however you want. You don't have to use a particular technology. So if you and the other person who are meeting with each other have FaceTime, you can do FaceTime. I am an Android device kind of a person, so I've never had an iPhone. I have an Android, and so I don't use FaceTime because that's an Apple platform. And so that's why when I meet one-on-one with you, we'll just go ahead and use Google Hangouts. So that's the part where we are going to be live chatting, but I'm very flexible schedule-wise. Weekdays during the day do work well, but I can do things like evenings or weekends also. So we can really make this work and make it work with your schedule, even if you have an internship or you have a job that locks you down as far as schedule goes. And that's one of the reasons why I offered this as an online class anyway. I thought this will make it really accessible for people who want to have an internship, but they also want to either get a jump on this class. Maybe you're a rising junior and you'd like to have it out of your way before the school year starts, which is kind of a great way to do it. Or you may be a little farther along, and instead of getting a jump on it, this format might just work better for you to be able to dedicate yourself to one class without having the distractions of 6 other classes pulling at you. If you're nervous about technical writing or about this format, I'm, again, very accessible, and I really hope to guide you through this and make it a little less scary for you as it might be. So that's a little bit about the format of this class, how we're going to go about doing what we're doing. I am learning this as well. This is my first time teaching a fully online class. I've used Canvas before. A few of the videos that we're doing I developed last summer or during this past school year. So if you see that my hair looks different or something like that, that's what's going on. And I'll apologize in advance if there's any semester-specific information in those videos. I don't think I put any semester-specific information in those videos, but I'm going to look through them and kind of make sure. So bear with me. I'm doing this for the first time as well, and I think we can learn this together and do this thing together. It's a pilot, and I think it's going to be very cool. I'm very excited to work with all of you. So let's talk a little bit about what technical writing is and why you have to take this class. WashU is one of the rare engineering schools that requires all undergraduate engineers to take technical writing. Usually engineering schools have it as an elective, and it's an elective that not many people want to take, so maybe there's one section of it a semester or something like that. And people think, oh, it'll be good resume filler, I'll take this class. Or maybe you have those rare couple of students that are really, really interested in it. For the most part, I think most engineering schools just pay lip service to it, offer it so that it's offered, and push it aside. I am so glad, for many reasons, that WashU requires all undergraduate engineers to take technical writing. The most, perhaps, obvious reason is that I have a job, which is awesome. But also, I think more importantly, you all will be able to distinguish yourself from among your peers as excellent communicators. You're bright, you're smart, you're good at engineering. Lots of people are. Students from engineering schools all across the country, all across the world, are really good engineers. They're good at math, they're good at their field, they can do the work. A lot of when you're going into the workplace or into academia and you're kind of moving forward into whatever your life holds for you, a lot of what distinguishes you and sets you apart from your peers is how you communicate with others. The bosses that are hiring you, the managers that are working above them, are they able to understand what it is that you do, what you're passionate about, your previous projects? So that all plays into an interview. But then when you're working on a project, how do you get funding for it? Maybe the people funding it are not also engineers, so they may not exactly know what you're doing. You have to communicate it to non-engineers in a way that makes sense. Why is it important? What is it exactly? Similarly, your managers. Maybe you're trying to get the okay on a project, or to explain to them why this project is really important. You need more personnel, or you need more resources for it. You need to buy this piece of equipment because it's going to allow you to do your work better. Every time you're trying to make that kind of an argument to someone who doesn't have the same background as you do, you're using technical communication skills. So I know the class is called technical writing. That's for very bureaucratic reasons. Really, it should be called technical communication because we're going to be trying to communicate things in different ways. You're going to be making short videos of yourself. So that basically replaces class discussion in some ways. You'll have the chat, so you'll have discussion, and the video chat, so you'll have kind of live discussion. So there's all these different ways that you will be able to express what you're doing to your classmates. Also, there is a final presentation in the class, which is a formal presentation where you will do a PowerPoint and you'll present in front of it, and we will figure out the technological needs on that. It's a little tricky. If you're in town, you can use a classroom at WashU and have the screen behind you and you present. If you're not in town and you don't have a setup like that, there might be a way of doing a split screen or something where you're presenting on one half of the screen and there's PowerPoint on the other. I'm sort of navigating this and figuring out what's out there because I'd actually like to do that with you guys as well. But we're going to kind of see what we can do. But you'll even have a formal presentation at the end of the semester, at the end of the summer session, where you present something to your classmates and to me. And so formal oral presentation, informal discussion, informal text chat, emails, and then formal writing. All of that is stuff that you're going to be working on. And it's all workplace skills, it's all academic skills, but it's also life skills. And so I like to think of this class as business writing for engineers. That's kind of what it is. The B School, they have their business writing class, and it focuses on the things that they're going to be doing in their lives in marketing or management or whatever. For you, there is some crossover. There's probably some stuff that we're going to do that's fairly similar to what a business school class would do. But for the most part, they're the kinds of documents and the kinds of communication that you'll need for your life as an engineer, whether it's in industry or academia or as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of different ways that you all might go and that you might choose to go. Life usually winds its path, and it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be when you graduated from college. But whatever place you go with your engineering skills, you'll be able to take these lessons and use them. We're going to be working on proposals, instructions, mechanism description, long formal research project where you actually incorporate research into what you're doing. So there's a lot of different kinds of things. We're going to be talking a lot about audience too. Who are you speaking to? Why are they listening or reading this? What are they interested in? What do they already know? What tone should you be using with them? What kinds of language? That kind of stuff is really important, and it can translate into a lot of industries, really. So we'll be doing a lot of that as well. And my hope is that you walk away from this with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more practice, communicating your engineering skills and your more technical knowledge to people who are not also engineers. So most of the audiences for your papers and projects are going to be non-technical audiences. Educated, but not technical. So actually, I'm kind of your perfect audience. When I tell you a little bit about my academic background, you'll discover, hey, she's not an engineer, she's a writer. And in fact, most of us who teach technical writing, actually all of us are not engineers. We have one technical writing instructor who is a scientist. She's a biologist by education and her previous career. Most of us come from a humanities background, from a writing background, from a technical writing background. We're skilled at communicating technical topics that we've learned about to those who don't already know a lot about them, but we didn't study that stuff. So to me, it's not second nature. When I learn about a topic in biomedical engineering or a topic in computer science, I kind of have to work to figure it out. And then to translate that in a way that makes sense to people like me who don't already know a ton about it. And so the cool and interesting challenge for you for this summer is, how can you take the things that you love and the things that you do and communicate them to those who don't already know a lot about them, who aren't your peers in the field, who aren't in that same class? So technical, what does it mean for something to be technical? The obvious answer is, oh, well, this is an engineering class. Things that are technical must be things that are engineering related. And in fact, yes, there are a lot of engineering topics that are very, very technical. Most of the things you do are very technical. I like to think of technical as either incredibly data driven or data intensive in some way. There might be kind of a technique aspect or a scientific aspect to it. So all of this means that they don't have to be engineering topics. A lot of topics can be very technical, but not related to engineering. So for example, certain sports have a lot that's very technical, whether it's on the technique side of things, how exactly you swing a baseball bat and what the different swings do kind of in a physics way to the ball when they hit them and their spin, or what kind of a pitch comes towards that baseball bat. So on a technique side of things, or if you look at the statistics of baseball, there's a lot of data analysis you can do with those statistics that are very, very interesting. And so that's very technical, even though you don't necessarily think, oh, hey, baseball, that's a really technical thing. Economics can be very technical. So one of the sample final papers I'm going to show you for the tech writing class was from 2018. And it's about a finance topic. It's about the stock market. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the stock market, you probably realize that when you try to read something about the stock market, it goes over your head. It's very difficult to understand that stuff if you don't already have a background in it. And so that means, hey, that's a clue. It's probably pretty technical. And so one of the example papers I'm going to show you is about that, and it's very understandable, also very informative. So it's not just kind of a basic overview for, kind of a broad overview. It does have a topic. He goes into detail. He goes into a lot of analysis, but also it's very understandable to people like me and perhaps you if you don't have a background in finance also. So finance, economics, they can be very, very technical. I have a couple sample final papers for you that are about some of the social sciences. One of them is an archaeology / anthropology topic, and he was doing primary research on that. But a lot of people choose for their papers to work on topics that they are already really firmly enmeshed in. Your research, if you do research, something you learned in a class this last year that really sparked your interest. I think the key thing with most of these papers is really try to pick something you're interested in. Otherwise, I don't know, it's tough. It's tough to write about something you're bored of. If you're already bored, why would I be interested to read it then? Why would your peers be interested to read it? So part of the challenge is finding things that are of the right scope, things that are technical, but that you can still communicate in a way that makes sense, and things that you care about a lot. And so, or maybe that you're just interested in learning more about. So that's something that we'll kind of explore as we go along. To navigate this class, we're starting with some of the more business writing stuff, resume, cover letter, memos, and ways of approaching those. Resume and cover letter, I like to start with them because you actually use those in your lives. And so let's say you're spending this summer actually applying for stuff. Wouldn't it be great to have a completed resume that you really love and a cover letter that you love in the first week of this class or the first week and a half of this class. So it's still June and you're done with that and you're able to, let's say you need to send it out in July, it's done. You've gotten feedback on it and you're happy with it. So I used to do this a little bit later in the semester, but I have moved it up to be the very first thing because I think it's very practical. And then as we move away from business writing, we'll speak about audience, and that'll be kind of the next thing we talk about in depth. You'll have a paper on that. We'll move to mechanism description. We'll talk about instructions, and then you'll propose your final project, and you'll work on your final project. So with 5 weeks, this being a 5-week class, it's very intense and it's very intensive. This is the amount of work that we normally pack into a 15-week semester. And I'm asking you to do it in 5 weeks. So yes, it's going to be a lot of work and it's going to feel pretty intense. If that seems like something you are not really going to be able to do, if you know yourself and you say that level of intensity is just a little too much for me to be going through this material in essentially triple time, then you're watching this video hopefully on or before the first day of class. There's still time to drop this class. If it's day 1, you're allowed to drop or withdraw without penalty. I believe it has to be the first day though. Double check with the engineering school to make sure. So if you're looking at this and you're kind of exploring it on Canvas and you think like, this is just too much. I don't know if I can do all of this in this summer, especially if you have other commitments and you know that kind of intensity is not for you. I won't be offended if you decide, hey, I want to take this during the regular semester instead. We still have some spots available as of right now during the regular semester. And so I will not be offended. I completely understand. But I personally always really loved the intensive summer format. I thought it was really cool because you can immerse yourself in something, really learn about it, and you don't have the distractions of a bunch of other classes. You're not doing the juggle quite as much, the juggle between 6 different classes and all the different projects and all the different teams and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited about the intensive format. I think 5 weeks is kind of nice because it does lend itself to there's enough time. It's not a 3-week class. You do have to kind of double down and work hard and get stuff done and maybe spend more hours in a day than you normally would. But I don't think it's insane. So that's kind of the overview of what we're going to be covering, why you need technical writing, some student feedback from the students who have been out maybe a few years, 2-3 years, sometimes 5 years. I do hear back from them sometimes. Maybe it's just because they need a recommendation letter or something, but sometimes I get an email that's just a check-in or a message on LinkedIn that tells me a little bit about their career. And a lot of students say technical writing was really valuable for them. So right now, some of it might feel like common sense, or you might think about like, how am I ever going to use this? It doesn't seem that practical. As it turns out, you do have to do a lot of writing and a lot of communicating at least in industry, but academia too. If you're going to graduate school, you're hoping to get a PhD, you are going to be publishing stuff, you're going to be writing grant applications, all of that falls into this as well. And so students who have been out a few years and the entrepreneurs and the people who are deciding to go to med school and the people who are working their way up in industry, they do come back and they say, this was really valuable. I really am glad that I learned how to write a proposal, or I use the, idea of how to write easy to follow instructions a lot in my work. Or it's been really cool to think about everything as kind of an argument for what do I want the reader or the sort of viewer to take away and what do I want back from them. So thinking about audience kind of ends up making a difference for them. So I have gotten good feedback, and a number of my colleagues have as well, that what you're doing here is actually going to be valuable in your life. I know that sounds like a big sales pitch for like, hey, here's why technical writing is important, but I think it's important to start with that, to start with, this is important. You are doing something that is going to be valuable to you, specifically valuable in what you do, not just kind of in an abstract or theoretical way. It's a life skill. And so that's what we're going to be working on. A lot of projects, each one of them focused towards something you might have to do in industry or academia. when you do your next steps out of here, out of WashU. So as we go along, I want you to feel free to give me feedback on this stuff. Feel free to ask lots of questions. Unfortunately, because we're not meeting in person in class, it's not as conducive to just kind of having that informal question or banter where you pop in with some things that you weren't sure about, or you stop in after class and talk to me. But that's why I'm available by email, by Google Hangout, by Google Chat, by, however you want to get in touch with me, because I want to make it really easy for you to be able to even ask, like, why am I doing this assignment? What is the purpose of this in my life? It's a legitimate question. And so even though you might think like, oh, it seems a little rude to ask that, go ahead and ask it. There's nice ways to ask even that, right? What is the purpose of this? How might I be using it in my life beyond WashU or at WashU? And so I'm so happy to talk more about how you might use each of these skills as you move along and do your thing. So let me take a step, not back, but sideways, and tell you a little bit about myself. And in doing so, I'm kind of modeling what you're going to be doing for your introductory video. So I posted the assignment on Canvas. It is an introductory video of yourself, very informal. You can do it like in selfie mode on your phone, where so here's my phone. All right. So where you just like take a selfie of yourself, a selfie video, and you talk a little bit about yourself. It doesn't have to be great video quality. It's just a chance for all of us to get to know you a little bit. So I'd like to hear, and all of this is in text in that assignment on Canvas as well. So you don't have to memorize what I'm saying on the video right now. But you should tell us your name, where you're from, and I know that that's sometimes fraught with a lot of confusion. Some of you have moved a lot as young people. Some of you deem yourself to be from somewhere, but your parents have moved to another place now, so you don't go back to the home you came from very often. Whatever it is, tell us some of the places you're from or some of the places you call home. Tell us a little bit about your academic background. What are you majoring in, minoring in? What are your academic interests? And if you transferred from another school, where'd you come from? I'd love to hear that, and I'm sure your peers would too. We all come from different places. So tell us a little bit about your hobbies, and then if you think of a fun fact, I know the icebreaker fun fact can be really boring, but think of a fun-ish fact, and let us know what that fun fact is about yourself. And it doesn't have to be some big thing from your life. It really could just be some little thing that happened to you this summer, an interesting person you ran into on the plane back home, or just whatever quirk or hobby you have, you could tell us about. So, for example, hi everyone, I'm Seema Dahlheimer, and you all can feel free to call me Seema. That's perfectly fine. We're all adults here. So I'm Seema, and I'm from St. Louis, so I didn't move far at all. I am from St. Louis, and I grew up here until I was 16. I moved to Bangalore, India for 2 years, which was a really cool experience. I lived in Atlanta for a year, and then I came back here to WashU, and my academic background is that I'm a WashU alum, undergrad class of 2002. So if you, for example, are class of, well, I don't know if this would make you freshmen or sophomores, but if you or a peer is class of 2022, that means that I am an even 20 years older than you. Oh boy, I feel old. Okay. So WashU class of 02 in English secondary education, and I minored in writing. So much of what I do is writing related. I got my graduate degrees at University of Missouri St. Louis and at Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville, which is actually just right across the Mississippi River. It's in greater St. Louis, essentially. And all the while I was working at WashU and at other universities. I did a lot of teaching in a lot of different places, and a lot of writing. And all of my freelance work in different industries sort of brought me to technical writing. I've been teaching technical writing in the engineering school here at WashU for 11 years now, which is kind of crazy. And so it's been a delight to work with you all. It is really cool working with scientists and engineers who are passionate about what they do. I learn something new every single semester because these are not the fields I studied. And even if they had been, they're emerging. There's so many emerging technologies. There's so much that's changing that there's always something new to learn. So I'm very excited to be learning from you all about the things you do and the things you're interested in. So my academic background is in the humanities, but I've been working with you all with engineers for the last 11 years. I'm also married to a WashU engineering alum in computer science, and so he's a software developer. And so I get to, get a little bit of industry insight into what's going on in computer science and software development. So that's my academic background. Let's see, what else did I have you guys do? Oh, my hobbies. Okay. I have, in my personal life, I have 2 kids. They are 8 and 2. And so I hang out with them a lot, and it's a lot of fun. I don't get a ton of time for other hobbies that I love or anything like that. I'm trying to teach myself how to sew more than just a button. So I've been making little dresses for my nieces. And so yeah, that kind of thing. I'm trying to teach myself how to sew. I love to read. If you ever need book recommendations, I've got something in every genre. And I like to eat out in St. Louis. I like to do St. Louis things. So if you ever are like, hey, my parents are coming to town, I'm looking for a cool restaurant to take them to, or like, do you know of anything interesting going on in St. Louis this weekend? The answer is probably yes. Ask me. I'm so happy to share this city I love with you. So if you're here this summer and you're like, hey, I'm looking for live music in a park, guess what? There's live music in lots of parks. And so the summer in St. Louis is awesome. So if you are here, please feel free to ask me all the questions you have. So I guess St. Louis is a passion of mine. So those are some hobbies. Let's see, a fun fact. I can never really come up with anything that's all that fun. Sometimes my fun fact is that I have 2 kids, but I already told you that. So other awkward and odd fun facts. My thumbs bend down further than most people. I think I'm missing a ligament of some sort on each of them. So that's kind of my gross fun fact. And then another fun fact is that when I was in high school, Ellie Kemper of the movie Bridesmaids, the Netflix series, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt? No, I messed that up. Something Kimmy Schmidt. So she plays Kimmy Schmidt and a couple of other things. Ellie Kemper was a classmate of mine, and so I'm not still in touch with her. I didn't know her all that well, but that's my celebrity run-in. So that's a fun fact. So that's a little bit about me. That's more long-winded than you'll go because I have more academic and professional background, but you can be very informal like I was. You don't have to be, it's not a formal presentation. It doesn't have to be scripted or really well thought out. Just introduce us to yourselves. Let us see your face. Let us kind of understand who you are a little bit and what you're interested in. So that's introductions. When you post that introduction video, then your next task with those is to view each person's introduction video and comment on it. Comment for each person. And so what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to create a Google Drive folder so that you can all upload your videos into it. And then you can watch each other's videos from there and post in the Google Hangouts chat things like, let's, for example, say you're reviewing my video. You might say, Seema, it's really cool that you like to read. What do you like to read? Or it's really cool that you like to read. I like science fiction. So it doesn't have to be a really well thought out comment, but just kind of, because in class we'd engage with each other like that, right? If we were meeting each other, you would maybe talk to the person next to you and say, oh, that's so cool that you like sci-fi. Have you read this book? So post a comment for your peers after you watch each of those videos. And then in the live chat we do that first Friday of class, we'll get a chance to get to know each other a little bit better. So that's your first assignment. It's very informal. And then we'll be going more into the formal stuff, like working on your resume and cover letter. I'm going to be making videos to introduce you to resume and cover letter. I'm going to have a discussion board thread that you all can post in, because I'm going to give you a couple of examples of each and have you post comments or thoughts about them, and then I'll release the video and you'll be able to see more advice and more things that I have for you. So that's kind of what's to come. As far as the syllabus goes, it's going to be kind of, and I'm saying it's going to be because I'm recording this video while the syllabus is still a rough draft, but I've got a basic kind of outline of what we're doing each week. And then the deadlines are going to be on there, but I am calling them subject to change. I will change them on Canvas if they need to be changed, and I will post an announcement on Canvas so that you know. I will never make a deadline earlier than what the syllabus says it is. So if it changes, it'll only be because the deadline's later, because I want you to have more time to work on something. And that usually happens, during the regular semester as well, because people are working on stuff, they're struggling with it, they're showing me rough drafts, and I realize everybody could use a little bit more time. So that may happen. Everybody might be able to use a little bit more time on something. And so I really do try to stick to the syllabus, but there may be changes, and I'm just warning you that it is subject to change, so that you're prepared for it. I know some of you might be very scheduled and very kind of meticulous in the way you put your semester together, and I don't want to throw a wrench in that, but I also want to be respectful of when you need more time on something. So that's a little bit about what's to come in this next week. And so yeah, that's kind of the overview. The first major discussion board question for you is about examples of technical writing that you've seen that you think are good. So somebody who has done a good job explaining a technical topic of some sort in some way. And it might be writing. So it might be you read a news article recently and it did a really good job explaining this thing you didn't know a lot about. Or maybe something you saw on TV somewhat recently, or maybe within the last few years. Hey, I saw this documentary or I saw this TED Talk. It did a really great job explaining X, Y, or Z. And here were some of the things that were interesting about it. If it's something you saw online and you have the link to it, go ahead and share the link with us. A lot of the time it's not. A lot of the time you're like, I read this article, I read it in a newspaper somewhere. It was a couple years ago. I don't remember where it was. And that's fine. That's a lot of what we read. So I'll give you an example of something that I thought was a really good example of technical communication. I believe it's available on Netflix. There is a series called Cosmos. Maybe some of you saw it a few years ago when it came out. So there was an original series back in 1980 from the astrophysicist Carl Sagan, and he did this really cool explanation with each of these episodes of things about the natural world and the, beyond space. So he talked about the planets, he talked about stars, black holes, and all that kind of stuff. So then, in 2013, maybe 2014, right around there, Neil deGrasse Tyson did a reboot of Cosmos. Fun fact, it was produced by Seth MacFarlane, or co-produced by him, the brain behind Family Guy. So it's a really weird moment where like two really disparate people come together. But I think that series is a really good example of someone explaining things that maybe have previously seemed inaccessible to the public and making it really understandable. He explains things like gravity, like, the spectrum of visible light. He explains black holes. He explains, the sun. There's just kind of a lot of different stuff that he explains, the asteroid belt. So it's not just the solar system, it is beyond. Then he goes on the nanoscale and he actually looks at the Earth and the microscopic on Earth. He does take a look at at evolution, and so there's a lot of historical information as well. They make use of cartoons. It is Seth MacFarlane, after all, the brain behind Family Guy. So he makes use of cartoons, and that's in keeping with Carl Sagan, who did the original Cosmos, where it was these really campy reenactments where they'd have actors dressed up as like Sir Isaac Newton doing something. And it was a very entertaining and cool way to learn about science, about physics, about the natural world. And so I thought that series of Cosmos, whatever criticisms you have of it, I thought it was a really good example of really good, interesting technical communication. So that's one example. There are a bunch of others. So anytime there's been a technical topic that you've learned something about, that somebody just did a really good job of explaining it. That, and maybe visually, or maybe, by explaining it in a talk or maybe an article, that would be a great thing to post in that discussion board and tell us a little bit about. And that is something that I do on the first day of tech writing class. When we have a class, we kind of go around the room and ask, who has good examples of technical communication that you kind of can remember reading or seeing recently. So that's something that we can all talk about, and I'll respond to your examples as well. I'm going to try and be as responsive as possible in this whole thing. So that's, again, something that you're going to be working on the first week of class. And then as we meet, we're going to be able to get a little bit more into all of the gritty details of the assignments. You also have access to engineering subject librarian Lauren Todd. I'm going to send you her email address, or I'll put it on Canvas, and the link to her library page so you can see what her face looks like and all that. Lauren is a really great resource in helping people find sources specific to engineering topics. So as you start doing research for your final research project, she's a really excellent resource. And she's super friendly, really easy to approach, and she is fairly available this summer. So that's kind of another resource that you're going to be able to use. If you're in town in St. Louis, for any of these one-on-one meetings that I am scheduling with you on Google Hangouts, if you decide you'd like to meet in person, I am so happy to do that. That sounds awesome. I would love to meet you. And so if you're in St. Louis, you want to meet in person, we can figure it out. If you and another person, let's say you're reviewing each other's papers and you've been paired up together, if you're in the same city, meet up with each other. Meet each other and do the meeting in person. I think there's a lot to be gained from an interaction like that video chat kind of approximates. It's better than nothing, but I think there's nothing quite like sharing a cup of coffee with someone, and I mean, not the same cup of coffee, sharing the experience of drinking a cup of coffee with someone and sitting across the table and chatting about the paper, but also getting to know each other. And you're creating a community of people here in this class that you can rely on as you go along. You've given each other feedback on your work. You are, you're getting to know each other in a different way than a lot of other engineering classes. And it's a cool chance to meet people outside of your discipline too, right? Because technical writing is interdisciplinary. And so we might have students from a lot of different majors and a lot of different years here in this class. So it is kind of a really great support network. So yeah, I'm really pleased to be working with all of you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Just kind of a word to the wise, even if you watched this video in double time, I would really urge you not to. From now on, it's not that long. Like this says it's 43 minutes right now. It is not the longest video in the world. Just watch it in regular time. Watch it like you're sitting in class. Especially as we start talking about assignments and stuff, there are things you don't want to miss. Or if you miss them, then you're going to be asking questions over and over again. And it'll be like, I covered it. It's in the video. And I think a lot of that can be solved when you just watch it in regular time. Take the time to process what you're hearing and what you're seeing. A lot of the videos are going to be me just kind of sitting in a chair like this, talking to you on a video. Some of them I'm going to try and do this sort of thing where you see what's on my screen, and I'm playing around with different tools for that. So especially as we talk about certain things on the sentence level, improving sentences, I'm going to want to show you some stuff. And so because I think it's just hard to see if I'm standing at a chalkboard writing, I don't know, you don't get a good view of me and you don't get a good view of the chalkboard. I'll probably do one or the other. I'll either talk to you like this, or I'll do a screen capture of whatever I'm doing on my screen. And so just take the time to watch it in regular time instead of double timing it. I know video allows you to do that, but I'm taking my time to talk to you. Please just take the time to listen to me. I really appreciate it. I won't know if you did that. So, you could pretend that you're watching them in regular time and watch them in double time anyway, but I think you're missing out in that case. Couple other things to note. The required text for this class is Canvas. So, be on Canvas, be checking it, check the announcements and all that kind of stuff. There's a recommended text, which is the technical writing textbook called Technical Communication. It's by Mike Markle. I don't have an edition number on there because they're all kind of the same. You can find an old edition, and they're great. It's a great resource. Some of my students have told me in previous semesters that there might be copies available of it online somewhere. I can neither confirm nor deny that, but you might ask Google what you can find, and whatever it is. But it's a really great resource, and I would suggest grabbing one. So, with that in mind, welcome to Technical Writing. I am looking forward to working with you all, and I will see you in the next one of these, and then also in our meeting on the first Friday. I hope you have a great weekend before class starts and a great first week of class, and I'll just keep posting stuff. So yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be so fun. Bye.